Good day, everyone. My name is Danica Magallanes, taking up a Bachelor of Science in Criminology. And for this discussion, I will discuss to you what is institutional based correction. So, here are the contents of my presentation. So, first, the learning objective, of course. Number two, the historical perspective and correction. Portrayal of tennis, the high death tolls, vigilante justice, corruption, the history of prison, the type of prison, and the influence of Roman Catholic Church. So, so here are the learning objectives of discussion. So first, describe the global view on prison administration, to determine the importance of incarceration, to discuss incarceration system, to know what are the different type of prison in Kankakee times. So first, what is correctional institution? So correctional institution is any prison, jail, reformatory, work farm, detention center, or halfway housed, community-based rehabilitation center, or any other similar institution designed for the confinement or rehabilitation of criminal offender. So reformatory, it is the institutions to which youthful offender are sent as an alternative to prison. In the work farm, it is a farm on which person guilty of minor law violations are confined. So, in the correctional institution, it includes the incarceration as part of the judicial proceeding or the judicial arrest, a place designated by law for the accommodation of person, children, families, or local authorities, mainly for sentencing or punishment after offense have been identified, correction or rehabilitation of a crime. Why it is they have a rehabilitation? So rehabilitation is the process of assisting offender in growing and changing, allowing them to detach themselves from the environment causes that cause them to commit a crime in the first place. So, and what is corrections? So they have a correctional institution, and also we have the correction. So correction is the branch of an administration of the criminal justice system charged with the responsibility for the custody, supervision, and rehabilitation of convicted offender. So in correction, it is to right a wrong. It is the fourth pillar of the criminal justice system. It also the weakest link. Why correction is the weakest link of criminal justice system? So it cannot prevent crime because they fail to reform an offender and prevent them from returning to criminal life. So correction is a branch of criminal justice system concerned with the custody and generic term to government agency that is responsible for rehabilitation, safekeeping of person deprived of liberty. So what is the purpose of correction? So the purpose of correction is to provide control custody and care to any person convicted of criminal offense. So they called person deprived of liberty. So next is the correction as a process. So correction as a process, it refers to orientation for a criminal offender to prevent him or her from repeating his deviant or delinquent action without the necessity of taking punitive actions, but rather the introduction of individual of reformation. So in correction reformation, it is the beginning of sentencing for from the time an offender initially assessed through case management and to the supervision in the community. A correctional program are often to help offender take responsibility for their action. That is the correction as a process. So definition of terms of prison. So a prison is a state of confinement or captivity, is a place of confinement, like especially for the breakers and institutions such an under state jurisdiction. So who is the prisoner? So a person deprived of liberty, this is the prisoner, and keep under involuntary restraint, confinement, or custody, especially one on trial or in prison. So someone restrained as if in prison, a prisoner of her own conscience. So prisoner are the person deprived of liberty. So next is the correctional administration. So correctional administration is the study of the practice of the systematic management of jails or prison and other institution concerned with the custody, treatment, and rehabilitation of a criminal offender. So correctional administration is leadership running on the the implementation, not running on the jail. It is the focus on the system. It is the studies of the system. So that is the correctional administration. It is the focus of the system, the study of the system, leadership in the implementation. Next is what is a definition of penology. So penology is the study of the punishment for the crime offender. It includes the study of controlled and control, not controlled. It is a control and prevention of crime through punishment of criminal offenders. The term derived from the Latin word poena, which means pain or suffering. So penology, it is the study of punishment. So that is a penology. So next is the penal management. So penal management is the manner or practice of managing or controlling places of confinement, as in jail or prison. So in the penal management, it is the technique running in a jail. It includes the personnel in jail, the correction officer includes their utilities, which is their electricity, their water, their food. Sectors in the penal management is a manner of practice managing and controlling. So the 5 facts about the criminal incarceration system I will discuss it later. Next is the historical perspective on correction. So these are the important dates and event in the history of correction. So that in 13th century, they are called the securing sanctuary. A criminal could avoid punishment by claiming refuge in the church for a period of 40 days. I'm sorry for that noise. So, okay, let's start. So, in the 13th century, securing sanctuary, in a criminal could avoid the punishment by claiming refuge in church for a period of 40 days. So, in the 13th century, they could avoid punishment. And it is also in the refuge, it is a condition of being saved or sheltered from danger or trouble. So that is in the 13th century. How about and also in 1468 England, torture as a form of punishment became prevalent, no, widespread. Okay, it's widespread. And so next is the 16th century, transportation of criminals in England was authorized. So at the end of this century, Russia and other European countries followed this system. This practice was abandoned in 1835. So Russia and European countries followed this system. So they are called galleys. So these galleys, they are long, narrow, single deck ships, propelled by sails, adorned by criminals. Transportation for criminals in the 16th century. So in the 17th to late 18th century, death penalty became prevalent as a form of punishment. So here are that. So also the punishment was prevalent. So okay, next is reason why it is death penalty. Why is the penalty is their punishment? It is because people during that time or this period did not totally yet the power of the police or a strong police force to combat criminals. Also, people lack of confidence in the transportation criminals, and galleys in the center and galleys is a center of corruption. Next is the 5 facts about the Philippine incarceration system. What is incarceration? So incarceration define the confinement in a jail or prison, the act of imprisoning someone, or the state of being prison, the state of being in a prison. That is incarceration. So credit to the owner of the photo and the left side here. And this is the first one, the 5 facts about the incarceration of the Philippines. So first is the overcrowding. As you can see in the picture, so it's very overcrowding. So on the September 28, 2018, during on the anti-drug and contraband inspection by the Upland Greyhound, okay, convicts sit on the floor of St. Dimas Chapel while Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency officer with a canine dog seek for the contraband among inmates at Manila City Jail. So why is there's a lot of inmates there? Why is so very overcrowding? Because it said that during the campaign of Duterte, he promised to kill 10,000 criminals, and by the end of 6 months. So as we can see, life inside Philippines' most overcrowded jail, the Quezon City Jail. You can see in the presentation. So excuse me. So condition inside is every space, as we can see, every space and cramped with the yellow t-shirt. The men, almost 60% are in form of drug offenses. So in this yellow, there are the drug offenses, and then they also, as we can see, they're squatting, sitting. So there's so every day they always squatting. There's a lot of so inmate every day they always do that, squatting, sitting. The space was like, so more than 4,000 inmates in counting. At the beginning of the year, young incarcerated, the incarcerated is, it could be as 3,600. After 7 months, it increased of, I think, Sir Captain Ronald De La Rosa, the cleaning up country. So the number is increase of 4,053. So of severe overcrowding, Quezon City jails inmates are notoriously slow. The under resource judicial system is creaking under a vast increase in the number of new cases of police conduct. Nationwide crime crackdown in response to Rodrigo Duterte order to eradicate all illegal drugs from Philippine society. So credit to the owner of this picture in the left side. So here, as we can see, they have a flag ceremony. So the Decatur inmates so called because they have spent 10 years or more behind bars while on the trial, are a system of a deeply flawed justice system society. So here, as we can see, the flag it was raising. Next, so Manila City Jail, the largest jail in the Philippines, is split into dorms that safety house of 170 inmates. This severe overcrowding in prison leads to illness and death to tools in 2000. Rodrigo Duterte won the presidential election in 2016. He promised to end crime within 6 months. So that's what I 6 months. So the 30 election leads to the infamous war on drugs and eventually Philippines had one of the most congested prison system in the world. So in 2018, the Philippines held the 6th highest prison population out of 21 Asian countries. So 108.31 million in 2009 Philippines population listed. There are 215,000 people were incarcerated. There are 933 prison running in the Philippines. So next is the pre-trial detainees. So pre-trial detention, also known as the remand or preventive detention. So according to the word briefed, 75% incarceration system are pre-trial. According to Fair Trade Organization, right now, over 3 million people around the world are being held in prison while they went for a trial, and they are detained for years, a month, or even a year and have been convicted of a crime. It is when someone is detained by the state while waiting. Okay, next. So in the pre-stage of a court proceeding before the trial. So that is the pre-trial. So it is when someone is detained by the state while waiting for a trial to determine whether they are innocent or guilty of a crime. So in the pre-trial, there is once either on a warrant arrest or a summon. The pre-trial stage during the time which pre-trial judges will determine whether or not there is sufficient evidence for the case to proceed trial. So why it is important? Why is it important trial have a pre-trial? why it is very important that we have an pre-trial. Pre-trial is important because it allows parties to consider to prospect of an amicable settlement or submission of other resolution method. So here, 2018, 141,422 of and 188, 178 prisoners pre-trial detainees. So next is number 4 is the hide that tools. So about 5,200 inmates die annually the new Bilibid prison. So according to CNN of Philippines, so because of that, why what is who I mean there are die I mean sorry there are 5,200 die each year, believe it in Bilibid prison, New Bilibid prison, each year as a result of overcrowding, according to the hospital medical chief Mr. Tomaya, because of space. So in New Bilibid prison, so and Muntinlupa, the New Bilibid prison, NBP in Muntinlupa, Metro Manila, and the main insular penitentiary designed to house the prison population of the Philippines. It is maintained by the Bureau of Correction under the Department of Justice. So what happened to the old Bilibid prison? So the prisoner equipment in facilities from old Bilibid prison were transported to the new jail, which was formerly the New Bilibid prison in 1940. The Manila City jail was built on the ruins of the old facility. Why Bilibid prison was transferred? So the question is, why Bilibid prison was transferred to Muntinlupa? Why is it? Because of the view of increasing crime. The Commonwealth government passed Commonwealth as Act No. 67 in response to rising crime. A new jail was erected at Muntinlupa on 254.73 hectares of land and remote region. So what year old Bilibid prison Manila was transferred to Muntinlupa? What year? So construction began in 1936 with a budget of 1 million pesos. 1 million pesos. So in 1940, the prisoner also an equipment, the facilities transferred to the new prison. So in New Bilibid prison, according to Ernesto Tamayo, the tools are due overcrowding, dirty living condition, and the inmate violation. Tamayo said that there were uncontrollable outbreaks of the pulmonary tuberculosis. So these are the reason that I have say it. So uncontrollable outbreaks of pulmonary tuberculosis. Second, the overcrowding. Third is the poor living condition. Fourth is the inmate violence. 5 is the lack of nutritional food. 6 is the basic health care. So, and thankfully, the last is politicians and prison employees are working to reduce overcrowding in the Philippines prison. Human rights advocates have also called for the release of vulnerable inmates, hoping to protect them from poor living condition. So next is the vigilante justice. So what is vigilante justice? So vigilante justice often describe the action or a single person or group of people who claim to enforce the law but lack of legal authority to do. So example, a person who make the person who make it his own mission to kill murderers. That's the vigilante justice example. Also, who takes the law into her or his own hands. That is the vigilante justice. So what example of fictional vigilantes? Superman. So Superman is devoting to advancing truth, justice, and an American way. He has repeatedly demonstrated that he is a real hero, capable of whatever level of bravery and self-sacrifice required to right a wrong or save a life. Next is I would like to example Robin Hood. Robin robs Robin robs the rich rob was robs the rich to give the poor, and date banks as early as the 3rd century. So during war on drug escalated during his presidency, he said that if you know of any addict, go ahead and kill them yourself. So here, as we can see in the picture, the sister of Jefferson Bununan carrying his photo as they prepare to take his body to Manila South Cemetery. Credit to this photo in the left side. This is the next photo. Police personnel at the crime scene after identified gunman on motorcycle finally fatally shoot Edgardo Santos in the head at about 4:30 p.m. in Mandaluyong, Metro Manila, November 11, 2016. Carlo Gabuco for a human right water. Next, it is the people who voluntarily surrendered during the Operation Double Barrel. Tokhang signed an affidavit. They use drugs, yes, as we can see here in the picture. They will cooperate with the authorities in their anti-drug campaign. Also, next, as we can see, the family picture with the coffin of 5-year-old Danica Mays Garcia. After a pre-burial mass, an unidentified gunman for targeting Garcia's grandfather, Maximo Garcia, killed her while the family sat down and reached at their home in Dagupan City, Pangasinan. Okay, next picture. So, a small sachet of shabu, a form of methamphetamine, if it's correct, it's found wrapped in a 500 peso bill and found in Jason Raven pocket after he was killed in 5 mass armed. So this is January 13, 2007. So together the Philippine police force and identified gunmen have killed 7,000 known drug dealers and users since Duterte presidency in 2016. So next is the corruption. So It is a form of dishonesty or criminal offense which is undertaken by a person or an organization which is trusted with a position of authority in order to acquire illicit benefits or abuse power for one's personal gain. So, illicit benefit means is a disadvantage not permitted and full. That is a corruption, of course. In August 2018, the public learned a former mayor may have been released for prison for a good behavior. He was originally charged, for rape and homicide in 1993. So, similar stories of corruption in the Philippine prison continued to emerge. So, in September 2018, she paid 50,000 pesos and US dollar, it's 970. Later that year, as it decided, live like a king for a fee. So, information lead to further allegation. The contraband question, the cigarettes, the cell phone, the televisions. Inmate, they say the inmate can also pay for the personal cooks and nurses. So, okay. Inmates who cannot afford a better life within the prison are stuck in overcrowded and dirty rooms. These inmates have a higher rate of becoming and of death. So number 7 is the history of prison. So from the birth of modern civilization in 3rd millennial BC, almost every ancient civilization used concept of prison as a means to detain and remove personal freedoms of incarcerated people. So in earliest record of prison come from the 1st millennial BC, located on the area of mighty ancient civilization of Mesopotamia and Egypt. So in Mesopotamia, as we can see in the right side, the picture in the cave. So in early Mesopotamia were used as holding places until a case or judgment was decided on the basis of confessions with witnesses or through the ritualistic procedure. And also in the Egypt prison, prisoners are kept in dark, poorly ventilated cells, as we can see here in the picture, and little or no fresh air, and unsanitary condition with little access to water and toilet, and receive unhealthy food. Oh my god. So next is prison timeline history. So in the 2nd century BC, there are also record found of many Egyptian in Mesopotamia, and site provided the archaeological site prove the existence of the earliest prison in the world. It is the 2nd century BC. Next is 600 BC. The remains of the oldest known prison can be traced up the ancient Rome, the Carcere Mamertine prison. So Mamertine prison Rome is known as Carcere Mamertino, if it is correct. It's an ancient prison, though the date back to perhaps an early of 7th century BC. So next is 200 AD. So one of the oldest prison outside Roman Empire was found in the Israel of town of Tiberias. So 200 AD, the Roman Empire was found in Israel town of Tiberias. Next is 1166. So English King Henry II commissions the construction of first prison together with new legal system that use concept of jury. So 1915, King John signed Magna Carta, which started the new the new age of legal in England. So what is Magna Carta? So Magna Carta is the first document to put in writing the principle of king and his governments was not above the law. So it sought to prevent the king from exploiting his power. and place limit of royal authority. So it was good here. So the Magna Carta was writing the principle that the king and his government was not above the law. So next is fourth is okay 1400 so England established houses of correction. So in houses of correction were established in the late 16th century as places for the punishment and reform of the poor convicted of the petty offenses through hard labor. So in the 60s, the growing number of English prisoners gave birth to the military pardon. 70s, the environment of Industrial Revolution and Napoleonic Wars brought great increase in the number of incarcerated people in England. There are also 70s, the England John Howard published the influence book that processed prison reform. Okay, so there's a lot time in history. The 1779 Penitentiary Act included the concept of rehabilitation to the UK prisoners. So the philosopher Jeremy Bentham created design for this perfect prison where government could spy on annoying inmates. See? So in 1815, the first time in history UK government started paying. So in 1815 they are started paying the wages of jailer and respective condition of the prisoners. So reminder, 1815 is the first time history UK government starting paying. So in 1817 Elizabeth V fought for prison reform solution of the problem of overcrowding women. Also, they have a woman prison and children correction center. So take note that 1815 is the first time in history UK government started paying this. So what year it is? 1815. And then 1817 is the woman. We have a woman prison and children correction center. Who is that girl? See? It is Elizabeth Fry. So in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, I think it's correct my pronunciation, started enforcing the solitary confinement in an effort to rehabilitate its prisoners. So the Eastern State Penitentiary started forcing the effort to rehabilitate its prisoners. So they're called rehabilitation here. Next is 1835. 1835, the prison inspector first started working in UK together with the first prison volunteer teachers. And next is 1877, Prison Act brought all prison under the rule of UK government. So credit to the picture in the left side. 1890, great amount of societal and catatonic prisoner brought some concern to the legal system. Legal system of the solitary in the US prison. Next is first. So remember this. 1902, first reform school for delinquent boys is open to Borstal, Kent. What place? Borstal, Kent. 1902. Don't remember that. We always remember that. So 1934, American government opened Alcantara prison for the nation worst offender. So here is Alcantara prison worst offender. Next is the UK. The 1948 UK Criminal Justice Act created a model of old modern prison. 1983, the first occurrence of permanent knockdown mode in U.S. prison. Next, the Appalachian. In 1989, we called the Pelican Bay Prison. California was built for the sole purpose of holding the inmates. In 1991, the Criminal Justice Act introduced the probation service. So, for all prisoners that served a sentence that was longer, 12 months. So in the 1993, the modern UK prison service was formed. So remember that 1993 modern UK prison service was formed. 2002, administration of the American President George W. Bush formed the famous Guantanamo Bay detention camp. So this is George W. Bush, as we can see here. Next, 2005, America held over 50 supermax facilities to all enforced consent 24 hours period of isolation. Next discussion is about different type of prison, the antiquity times. So here, the Eastern State of Minichara, as we can see here, it's so very unique. I mean, and also the most famous expensive prison. Inside, as you can see inside, it's so very pretty, and it's so very expensive. This inside they call the synagogue, the all component cells, the cell block 7, the surveillance hub, the hospital. So imagine and they have an hospital inside the jail, the death row, then the hall, the baseball field. They also have a baseball field, and the kitchen and bakery. That's why it's so very expensive. So old Melbourne Gaol. Since 1814 until the closure of 1920, the old Melbourne Gaol has held the Melbourne. So in the old Melbourne, they are called the most dangerous criminals. So today you can visit old Melbourne Gaol. Next is Ned Kelly, Australian bush ranger. So Edward Ned Kelly was an Australian bush ranger, outlaw gang leader, and convicted police murderer, one of the last bush ranger. He is known for wearing a suit of bulletproof armor during his final shootout with the police. The prison of Yuma, the old Melbourne Gaol. So here is, and next is okay. This is the last part, religion role in prison. So we can see the right in the picture. This is Saint John Paul II. It is 1995 cycle letter, the gospel of the life, fruit of his alarm of the extraordinary increase, the gravity of threats of the life of individuals and peoples, but said one sign of hope of increasing opposition around the world of capital punishment. For that noise. So let's continue. So King Henry VIII. Henry's personal circumstances would drive him to break his Catholic ties and found the Church of England. So next is the Protestant religious reform continue as the Church of England broke the Church of farther away from the tradition of the established Catholic Church directed by the Pope. I think that could be all. I think that's 40 minutes, right? Thank you for always listening to my presentation. I hope that you have learned a lot of this discussion, and thank you for had time to listen to this discussion. And I hope you have an advanced knowledge about the correction and the time of prison, the incarceration system in the Philippines, and why it is very important, the penal management, the why is it correction is the weakest link, criminal correction is a process, managed administration. So I think that could be all. Thank you for listening.